Good morning, viewers, and good afternoon or good evening, based on whichever time of the day you're watching it. Chemical Engineering Student Society NIT Durgapur is back with yet another session of Chem Darshan. It's interactive session with esteemed alumnus, and today we have with us Dr. Kumar Siddharth from Harvard University. He's undergoing his postdoc at Harvard University, and this is Shomajit Mitro, your host for today. So welcome to the show, sir. It's an honor to have you here. How are you feeling?
Yeah, thanks a lot for for your introduction, and thanks a lot for inviting me for this interactive session with you for now. And yeah, it's a matter of really privilege for me as well to be invited and share my experiences with with my alumni chemical engineering students. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So, sir, should we go straight to the questions, or you would
Yeah,
like to
sure,
say
sure.
anything further?
Yeah, you can go to the questions. Yeah, through the
So, sir,
questions we
my
can interact. Yeah. Hmm.
first question to you is that you hold a PhD degree in chemical and biomolecular engineering.
Hmm.
So, could you tell us in detail about the field of biomolecular engineering in detail and all the aspects that it covers?
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to mention a very important point that after the bachelor's, I mean, even during bachelor's, if you conduct research, but especially after bachelor's, the concept of department becomes very not so specific because the department, or in every department almost, you will have people working in different research areas which are very transdisciplinary and convoluted. So,
So, it's
yes, my
interdisciplinary mostly.
yeah, mostly in. So I did my PhD, as you know, that after finishing my undergraduate from NIT Durgapur, I went for a direct PhD at the HKUST, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and there my department was chemical and biomolecular engineering. So first I will answer your specific question, that biomolecular engineering. So as you know that chemical engineering itself is very vast and diverse with so many applications, in different fields, and how your matter energy transform into useful products through the use of physics, chemistry, mathematics, even biology for that matter. So biomolecular engineering, you can even say it's kind of a subfield, or it could be considered as a separate field as well. So biomolecules, right? Like biological stuff like DNA, RNA, protein, right? So engineering with them to create some valuable products, or optimize those stuff. So that mostly falls under the category of biomolecules. Let's say one application could be drug delivery. Then I'm not sure if some people might have seen a TED talk, or even people might have read some research papers that DNA could be utilized as digital data storage media, synthetic DNA. So these are a couple of examples I gave, but there could be multiple examples, which could help in the healthcare sector, in the biological biotechnology sector in general. So engineering with biomolecules, in a simple words, is biomolecular engineering. Yeah.
Uh, so, so your profile also speaks of you having researched areas like electrochemistry and material science. I mean, so could you tell our viewers about your work in those fields?
Yeah, so as it's kind of a follow-up, because
Yeah.
as I mentioned that my PhD department was chemical and biomolecular engineering. So now I will go specifically into what I did during my PhD, right? My research
Okay.
field.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
my PhD research field was electrochemistry. So my lab was electrochemical technology lab under Professor Minhua Shao at HKUST. And within that, so before that, actually, I would like to mention that during my undergraduate itself, I did an internship after my third year in
Okay.
HKUST. Yeah, under Professor Gohachan, and I worked on batteries. Just 2 months, I got some valuable
Mm.
experience during that time, and kind of HKUST and Hong Kong itself. I really got attracted to both of them in terms of research facilities, infrastructure, the whole ambience, environment, and all. And that is one of the primary reasons I decided to go back there for doing my direct PhD when I was offered one when after application. So yeah, so my PhD lab, as I mentioned, was electrochemical technology lab. So in my lab, there were basically two different subdivisions. One was fuel cells and battery. So as you might know that there are two kinds of, let's say in terms of cars, green cars, right? There is electric car based on battery, which is an energy storage
Mhm.
device, Elon Musk, Tesla and all.
Yeah.
And then you have another car which is hydrogen car, which is based on fuel cells. So fuel cell is an energy conversion device. That's the difference. Battery is an
Okay.
energy storage device, fuel cell is an energy conversion device. It could have multiple applications. Car is one of the application, as I mentioned. So in hydrogen cars, fuel cells are used. In
Yeah.
fact, some of the prominent companies which have been developing this technology is like Toyota. I think Toyota had this flagship car called Mirai, Japanese word
Yeah.
Mirai
Yeah.
meaning
Yeah.
future. So that's based on hydrogen car. And a very interesting story about the use of fuel cell is, the Apollo mission of NASA. So
Okay.
the astronauts actually in 1969 and those times they used fuel cells. When I visited the Johnson Space Center of in Houston, and even the Kennedy Space Center, I saw, they have the replica of that, or in fact the original one I think is in the Johnson Space Center, the fuel cell which they used. And the very fascinating part of that is the byproduct of a fuel cell is water, pure water. So even
Okay.
astronauts drank it. So in my particular way, so in my lab these were two divisions, right? So I worked on the fuel cell part. Now fuel cell could have multiple um, applications, as I mentioned, and there are reactions. For example, in a more traditional fuel cell, let's say proton exchange membrane fuel cell, you have a hydrogen oxidation reaction in the anodic side, and you have oxygen reduction reaction on the cathodic side. So similarly, people work on designing electrocatalyst for the same, or to deal with the infrastructure challenges, stability, and the activity of the electrocatalyst. So these kind of research areas my lab worked on. And one particular reaction, there could be multiple reactions. There could be reactions, those half cell electrochemical reactions, which we study specifically. So we try to understand the mechanism of reactions and design electrocatalyst for the same. So in terms of better activity, better stability, and all the durability, let's say. So, and also test it in fuel cells later on to have, test the efficiency of that. So particularly in my case, my PhD thesis was based on one electrochemical reaction, which is ammonia oxidation reaction, which has implications or applications, let's say, in both direct ammonia fuel cells. It could be used directly as the anodic reaction, and it could also be coupled with another fuel cell. So in an ammonia electrolyzer, ammonia could be used to produce hydrogen, because usually water splitting is used to produce hydrogen. But ammonia, from ammonia to hydrogen, the energy consumption is much less. So of course that was one reason. There are multiple reasons for using multiple benefits of having ammonia in terms of overall hydrogen economy infrastructure as well. So that is something which I particularly worked on. So of course it is basically electrochemistry and materials, because we understood. So we try to understand in our lab, in my PhD lab, we used to understand these chemical reactions, try to understand their mechanism. So mechanism, how there are some in situ spectroscopy techniques like in situ FTIR, right? Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. Then you have in situ Raman. I used in situ FTIR a lot. Then I actually developed another which was published in JAX as well, that using AIE, aggregation induced emission technology, to detect intermediates in the particular reaction. Then we have some simulations, right? We do density functional theory calculations to understand and the mechanism, what intermediates are produced and all that. And then we design electrocatalysts. So that is material, right? It's kind of an like overlap with the material science. So
Okay.
you
Yeah.
design different materials. Of course, you have platinum based catalysts. You try to reduce the platinum loading to reduce the cost and keep the efficiency, or in fact increase the efficiency by doing different kind of morphology, like design or engineering strategies to surface engineering, all that for in the field of electrocatalysis. Like my first paper was surface engineering of platinum nanocubes with iridium,
Okay.
for ammonia, better ammonia oxidation reaction. So materials is heavily involved. I mean, as you would know that materials has so many, broad range
So for better
applications.
oxidation, iridium was used,
What?
or
Can you
so
repeat?
you
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
better oxidation with
Oh, so
iridium for better oxidation. So
yeah,
was
I mean,
iridium for better oxidation?
no, it depends on a specific reaction. So, for example, in my particular reaction, let's say for ammonia oxidation reaction, in that particular paper, we used platinum iridium nanocube. So we found that just trace amount of iridium could increase the activity of the electrocatalyst by more than twice. So we used those kind of strategies. Then we used some nickel hydroxide to like increase or enhance the durability. Now it depends on the specific reaction. For example, let's say for copper, carbon dioxide reduction reaction, many people use copper catalysts.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
are the best
Yeah.
for carbon dioxide oxidation. Sorry, reduction. So for
Reduction.
CO2 reduction, you could have different chemicals. So depending on what specific chemical you want, right? For example, if you
Mm.
want a particular alcohol, so you need to use a certain kind of catalyst. So all these are there. People do DFT calculations. People have a lot of data, so you understand from the literature, and then you design and try. Or sometimes it's trial and error as well. You have to try different ways, and you need to have some basis for that.
Basic
So
idea. Yeah.
yeah. So in summary, yes, electrochemistry because I worked on fuel cell in that field, and materials because I designed electrocatalyst for a particular reaction, which is ammonia oxidation reaction. And I tried to understand the mechanism through means like in situ techniques and a little bit of simulation as well. I learned density functional theory calculations. Yeah. So that was my PhD. Yeah.
So that I guess would be sufficient. But sir, right now, I mean, there are a lot of undergraduate students, specifically in final year, who are interested in doing research abroad in any of these fields.
Mm,
So, what would be your suggestions to them, and
mm.
what should be their pathway to achieve their dreams starting from undergraduate second year, if I'm talking about?
Yeah, so first of all, I was not aware of, from second year or such. So
Okay.
so definitely I would
No,
love
there
to
are
see
there are a
this.
lot of batchmates of mine, and they say that if we had a pathway from second year, we would have been able to do better,
Yes,
and
yes,
they
yes.
claim
I
that.
totally agree. That's what I was gonna tell. That so there are certain mistakes which I did, which I won't want all of you to do, or those who are much junior. So I would definitely suggest. So first of all, second year onwards, because first year is probably all
Yeah.
common subjects. Yeah. So from
It takes
second
a
year.
it takes a bit of time also in first year to get adjusted to the college environment, and
Yeah, yeah,
takes
yeah.
a
And you
little
don't
time.
really get into the your department and
Department, yeah.
like your departmental subject. So once you get exposure to departmental subjects, and I mean there are multiple ways. We have some amazing professors in our
Yeah, yeah.
university itself. You can try to garner, or I mean gain as much insights and knowledge from them as possible, because many of them are, I am pretty sure, I mean till I was there, I'm not sure about the current
Mm,
like what's the updates has been, but I know that many of them are conducting research as well, some really good
yeah.
research. So they could even approach them and try to understand what kind of work they are doing and what kind of work the students are interested in, and if they can be involved in any kind of degree to assist their PhDs, or in certain ways, slowly, like first try to understand the subjects, get a grasp on the subjects. So I would say that at least from second year onwards, let's say, it's just my own personal suggestion to anyone would be aspiring, because I won't if somebody is really into research right from the, I mean, beginning, then definitely they should try to
Mm,
do all these things as early as they can. And if they want to know if they are or not interested in research, they should try out different things. So one is, of
mm,
course, approaching professors in our department, see what research they are doing, try to get some exposure on that, try to practice and learn a little bit of that. So that's one thing. Then the another thing is, of course, this is the age of information age, and I'm not going to say use chat gpt, although Microsoft is in their browser they are using it, but I'm just saying that you have everything at your disposal. You have Google, you have YouTube, you have, I mean, for example, even for courses, NPTEL lectures are amazing. You might know already. So, and MIT OCW is there. In EDX, there are so many amazing. So you could go through all the courses, all the cutting edge research which is going on around the world. So I mean, all of us have the exposure for that. So I would say, which I did not do during my second or third years, I would definitely suggest that expose yourself. Keep your eyes and ears open to all the things going on, and try to gain some experience. The other thing in terms of experience comes that once you like once you understand the subjects, you could also try to apply. You should be aware of what are the things available, let's say nationally and internationally. For example,
Mm.
I'm pretty sure, which I again the things I did not know, I kind of know after my friend said, oh, I am going to IIT Kharagpur. I said, I was learning guitar that time. During my second year summer, so that was a bit funny. But I did not know all about all this, that oh, you should do internships. So try to use your summer and winter periods if you can.
Yeah.
Try to approach professors, email professors. You should know how to email professors as well, when you are approaching, be it any professor in India, let's say in IIT, ISC, TIFR. There are some amazing research institutes in India, and abroad as well, if you want to. For example, in my case, towards the end of year 3, I kind of came to know about Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and I also applied to National University of Singapore, and I wanted funding. So thankfully, professor in HKST, by seeing my CV, my email, and all, he agreed that okay, you can come for 2-month internship, and he offered me a stipend without which I could not have gone. So that's why I chose HKUST, and which I definitely think that was a very good decision. So like, be aware of what kind of scholarship, stipends, opportunities, research opportunities are available throughout, nationally, internationally. So keep your eyes and ears open, I would say, all your sense organs, and look out for opportunities. Learn, I would say, rather than just looking out for opportunities how to say, blindly. I would say that first try to understand, learn about your own interests. So once you learn about different subjects, different research areas, once you expose yourself to them, then you will understand better, first of all, whether you like research or not, and second, if you like research, then what kind of research excites you, interests you, and then accordingly you can devise a plan, strategy for applying, and getting some internships or something like that. So that is one way. Of course, in the long run, if you want to apply for PhDs and stuff, so then you need to go through, I mean, prepare your CV and other. Oh, by the way, so if you involve yourself in research, see if you could get into some conference, or like some if you could publish, I mean, have your name in some
Paper.
publications. If you want to go for a direct PhD or something, that helps. I won't say that's
Uh,
necessary, because I did not have any, but that helps. Yeah.
so, sir, there's been a lot of serious discussion. So, I would like to give you and myself a breather. So, could you mention some of the perks of being at Harvard, since you've spent quite some time in Harvard as a postdoctoral fellow, and almost everyone in India right now, I mean, everyone in India, it's not about right now.
Mhm.
Since I've been born, I hear everyone at India wants or dreams of getting to be at Harvard, even if it's for a day of their lifetime.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would like to say, not only in India, in the world. So everybody
Okay.
really loves Harvard. That's what I've realized over the last 1.5 years. So, I mean, wherever I've been traveling, or, when people come to know I'm from Harvard, they really are excited and want to know,
Yeah.
oh, what are you doing? So it doesn't matter if it's from someone from Poland or UK, or, from India or China or anywhere. So everyone
I know
really.
about India. I haven't heard from Polish or Chinese people. So,
Yeah, so that is something which I mean, I didn't know when I mean, I knew Harvard is one of the best in the world, but I didn't know that it's so popular all around the world, and which I came to know. I mean, I'm coming to know slowly. And I mean, there are reasons to it, as of course it's one of the oldest higher education institute in US. I think 387 years ago it was established, and the rich legacy and history of Harvard, so that is something which Harvard carries, like Oxford and Cambridge also has. But then I joke around that Harvard has the most Nobel laureates in the world,
yeah.
161, which is like more than any other university by a big margin. And not only that, everything Harvard has, the most. If you go for even Academy Awards or Olympic medals, or most US
Okay.
presidents, 8, including Barack Obama,
Okay.
and most living billionaires. So Harvard has such legacy. So because of that, I guess, it is well revered, and like respected all throughout the world. So that is something which I came to know after I entered. I didn't know
Okay.
that much before, but now I know about it. And the thing you asked, perks. So one is, of course, when I go through, like different buildings, or different, like for example, we have I mean, in terms of infrastructure, it's very holistic, very comprehensive. For example, we have so many libraries, so and so such rich history and legacy, as I mentioned. So one of our best libraries, Widener Library, is built on the name of Harry Widener, who
Yeah.
died in the Titanic, real Titanic. So on his
Okay.
memory, that library was built, and it's amazing. The library is very comprehensive, and when you go inside, it's like a palace. You feel like that. And there, so in terms of libraries and not only libraries, the whole. For example, I'm doing the research on. By the way, I haven't mentioned my current research at
Okay.
Harvard yet, which I will maybe
Mm.
mention in if you have any question like that later on.
Yeah.
But I'm using, for example, the Center for Nanoscale Science, and cutting edge, all the infrastructure which is available, because Harvard and MIT are very nearby. So
Okay.
people from MIT also come. We also go to MIT for certain things. So we are very nearby, and we are very. I mean, we are competitive, but we also collaborate together. And we actually, Harvard MIT have institutions together. For example, there is an institute called Broad Institute, which kind of is has both. It's a joint venture by Harvard and MIT. So yeah. So now, speaking of perks, yes, one is the diversity you have. The people around from all parts of the world. You have persons from almost every country. At Harvard, and Harvard is the one advantage. For example, MIT, maybe engineering, yes, it's one of the
Yeah.
best. But Harvard, in terms of everything, it has
Mm.
law, it has business, medical, all are really, really amazing. So, and science, of course. For example, in our Harvard Origin of Life, in which I'm working currently, initiative. So our director, Dimitar Saselov, he was the one who led the NASA's Kepler mission. Then we worked. Jack Szostak was here, who is a Nobel laureate. His two students were Nobel laureate. So like interacting with them, working with them, that is something which is very how to say, a very nice learning experience. Learning from them, and then other than that, as I mean, the peers itself, as I mentioned, from different parts of the world, alumni network is the best, which I haven't explored yet, because of course, I am here for now 1.5 years. Maybe down the line that might help as well. And the overall atmosphere, overall environment, I would say, yeah, those are the uh, perks, as per se. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's very how to say, the environment is very relaxing as well. It's not like you feel very you
Overwhelmed.
yourself, yeah, you feel motivated to work. And as I mentioned, even when I talk to Nobel laureates, that's something which is a very good learning experience. That even a Nobel laureate, when we are interacting with them, they feel like they are also so humble. They are like students; they are
Mm.
still learning. So that kind of thing gives us, a very good experience of how to approach science. Because no matter how much we learn, there are still infinite more things to learn. Actually, I was
Yeah.
joking with my friend from MIT the other day that anything you subtract or add from infinity, you still have infinity, right?
Mm.
So in one human lifetime, no matter how much knowledge, skills, whatever we garner, I mean, we collect, it's still a very small finite number compared to the overall, knowledge and
Yeah.
skills in the world. So no matter how much we learn, still infinity will remain. So being humble, being always ready to learn. So these kind of things, of course, other than the technical stuff which we are learning. So yeah, it's been a very good experience so far. I've been enjoying it, although I do miss Hong Kong because it's like my second home. But yeah, it's been really good.
Sir, so as you mentioned, you went for a direct PhD abroad. I mean, right after your BTech degree in 2016, you went for a PhD at HKUST. So there wasn't any MS or MTech involved in between.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, if we talk about present NIT Durgapur, for
Mhm.
example, there are a lot of students whom I personally know in both final year and among my immediate juniors, which is the third year. They're confused about how exactly to do that. I mean, they want to ditch that MS or MTech between. They don't want to go for it. For, don't want to invest those extra 2 years. So,
Mm.
how far is that possible? I mean, should they go for an MS or MTech? Would you suggest that, or direct PhD is better?
That's it's a very how to say, there is no direct answer, I would say, to this question,
Hmm.
because there are so many connotations to it which we need to
Yeah.
understand. So I can like share what like I have known or heard from different people. And then of course it's a personal choice decision based on your particular um, like
Goals.
preferences and goals, yeah, all that. So I would say that so first of all, yes, I went for a direct PhD because at that time, again, so in my case he's a bit weird because that time I was still, I loved Hong Kong, I loved HKUST, and they offered me a direct PhD.
Yeah.
And HKUST in engineering was among top 15 university in the world at
Mhm.
that time. And I was like, oh, this is really amazing, I just go for it, although I got a lot of job offers on campus
Okay.
in the final year, but I still wanted to go for it, for
Yeah.
which my friends were really mad that I'm blocking their jobs. but but jokes apart, um, like when I went, yeah. So when I went for direct PhD, my particular case was is not that's not it should that's not how it should be. My particular
Mhm.
case was I loved Hong Kong, I loved UST, I wanted to explore, and I went. And then slowly I liked research, but that's not the way to go. I mean, that's just how it happened with me. I mean, every person has their own unique and special
Mhm.
journey. But of course, ideally, you should plan ahead. You should, have proper plans in place and get for the best possible opportunity. And speaking of direct PhD, so every university or country has very different kind of guidelines. So for example, let's say I'll give you like few examples and then you'll understand. Or probably many of you already know about it, but I'll just reinforce it. So in US, I think very few universities would go for a direct PhD per se. They have a combined program.
Yeah.
They have a like MS PhD combined program, something
Combined
like that.
program.
So first 2 years people do courses and then they do PhD, something like that. And minimum 5 years if you go for a direct PhD, which is a
Okay.
combined as so in minimum five. Sometimes it takes longer. So that's the situation of US. But for US, you need to have GRE compulsory,
Yeah.
for most universities. And then you also need to have good score in probably IELTS or TOEFL, whatever you for the English one. Let's say in Hong Kong or Singapore or many other places, you can go for a direct PhD. You can apply there, so they don't have that requirement that, oh, you don't have a combined program or anything. If they think your profile is good enough for a direct PhD, they will give you. So you need to do a very thorough research on which universities, which countries give which kind of offer which kind of program. That's number one. That's very important.
Mhm.
Learn which kind of programs are offered and what are the pros and cons of each program, or what are the requirements for each program, right? So that's number one. And number two, what you want in your life, right? So now once you get the exposure, if you are really sure, if you're really sure that, okay, I want to do research for a long term, then going for a direct PhD is not a bad option. Some people go for MS or MTech because they think that, okay, let me do a master's and then see if I still want to continue in research or go to industry. Having said that, after coming to US, I understand. I mean, I was here before also, but now after staying in Boston and Harvard for a long time, I kind of understand one thing, that it doesn't matter. You can always come to industry as well. I mean, PhDs, after PhD, also many people join industry. After postdoctoral fellow, also many people go to industry. You can always go to. It's not like like you you can only go to industry after master. So I think that's a cliche. Maybe it's easier in India, or I don't know about that
Mhm.
honestly that much. But in general, overall, I would say that you can always go to industry. It doesn't matter what you do. And in terms of research also, let's say if you start direct PhD, it doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes in between, if you feel that you do not like research, you can always convert your program to masters and graduate as well. So there are all these kind of flexibilities there. Most universities provide that. At least HKST provided that. I'm pretty sure Harvard provides that. So like uh, it's not that once you decide something you need to panic. First you need to gather as much information as possible, then go with your gut feeling, instinct, what you feel doing the best. And once you decide, you don't worry, you go ahead, back your decision, try your best, and then see how things go. And then again you can later decide. So there is no such thing that, oh, once, which previously growing up, parents and people say, oh, once you do this, decide, your life will be decided. No, 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 life is never decided. So you keep going on and on and on. As long as you're alive, your life is dynamic. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's
it's
never
always
decided.
like after 10th, after 12th, after
Yeah,
BTech and. It
So
keeps
it's
going
nothing
on
like
like
that.
that.
After PhD, also nothing. I didn't know what to do. Now I'm here. I still don't know what to do later. So so it's like it's always going to be like that, so, and even if you're, let's say I'm a professor wherever I am, let's say I'm professor later on, then also I'll be, oh, when is the next funding coming, from where it is
Yeah.
coming next, so it will keep going, so it's a never ending process. So um so I would just say that, relax and be calm and just take the decision with the best possible information, and best possible your gut feeling, and then once you decide something, back it and then see how things go. And direct PhD is not a bad option, but you need to be careful where the direct PhD is
Yeah.
available and what are the requirements, and so forth. Yeah.
I mean, from an Indian scenario, I would like to say I think that the easiest way, I mean, the easiest way to get into the industry is after the undergraduate. Yes, because in India, problem is in India, people generally have a false mindset that once you're going for masters, I mean, even the employers have this false mindset, I guess, that if you're going for a masters, then PhD is the only next option. You can't come from masters to the industry. I mean, this is generally what I've seen in even in IITs and NITs, something that is a problem. And in India, it's like research facilities are also a problem, I guess, compared to abroad. If we talk about
I mean, when you
yes,
say abroad, that's something I
uh,
technically I would like to correct. When you say abroad, not necessarily everywhere abroad, okay?
yeah, yeah.
So it
US,
depends.
Canada,
Yeah, no,
Singapore.
Canada.
Yes,
I should not say it. This is gonna go to YouTube.
okay, okay.
So, but anyway, I would say that. I would say that. Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, there are many universities in the world where infrastructure might be much better. I mean, like for example, in Hong Kong there are a few universities, or in Singapore there are a few universities, or in UK few universities, not all. I won't say all.
Yeah,
Or in Zurich, or let's say, of course, US, many universities. Maybe few in Canada, few in Australia as well. But in general, I would say that, these days, when I'm interacting with people from different universities, or who came, for example, I have friends at Harvard and MIT who did research in India, right? Let's say at
okay.
TIFR or IIC, or ISERS, or even IITs, different places. So what I hear from them, at least, which is a breath of fresh air for me to hear, that research in India also is kind of slowly taking off, and a lot of universities professors are doing really good cutting edge research. Of course, there is a long way to go to catch up, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, in terms of rankings and all, but rankings, sometimes they're based on international, international
Yeah,
things, like how many international faculty, how many international students, where of course we lag. We need to look at those aspects as well in going forward in the long run. I'm pretty sure India will also look at that. So what I think is, India is also really good in research. That's a point which I wanted to make. So it's a false, I mean, maybe sometimes we think that maybe no, but no, India is also really good in research. And people here, when I interact with many at Harvard and MIT, those who did PhD from, as I mentioned, TIFR, or those places, and even BARC or other places, so they say good things about research. Of course, they say many like negative aspects too, but everywhere there are positive and negative
yeah.
aspects. So India is also doing really good in research. Of course, there are many ways to go to, like there is no limit of improvement anyway, and of course it will keep improving. So that's something I wanted to correct, that mindset that maybe just abroad is good, should not have that mindset. So I really wanted to make it clear that when you decide to go abroad, let's say for a PhD or masters, make sure that you thoroughly think that why this is a good option, or why this is a better,
Yeah.
not just because it is abroad. So
Mhm.
let's say, I'm not going to name any university. let's say uh, let's say you have a PhD offer from TIFR or IISc Bangalore, okay, let's say,
Yeah.
and another university, let's say in I don't want to name really, but let's say in somewhere in Korea, Japan, I don't know.
Somewhere, yeah.
So somewhere, not necessary that just because the other university is abroad, it is better.
Mhm.
That's my whole point. So you should really consider the things where you get. So just because it is abroad, no, you should go if you think that place is really good, really good in terms of
Mhm.
infrastructure, research facilities, supervisor, overall place, ambience, everything. So then you decide. not just because this is abroad, so that mindset I do not like, and I really wanted to point this out, because sometimes people have that mindset, oh, abroad means good. No, not like abroad means good. You need to think of the place also, and not all
Yeah,
places are worth living also long term. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
now I have traveled so much, and like learning from my own and others experiences, I could safely say that, for example, even in US, like I won't say that every place is worth living in US
Hmm.
is very big. There are 50 states, and so certain places like this Cambridge Boston area, greater Boston area, where Harvard, MIT is there. There is a Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, where there's Stanford and all those big companies. Seattle, maybe Manhattan of New York. There are certain areas which are nice. I mean, although many of them are not safe in terms of many things, but certain areas are nice. But it's not that all of US is like very lucrative or very. I would rather live in Hong Kong because that's amazing, or Singapore, rather than, because people have this mindset, oh, US must be best. Not necessarily, so depends on where you are going in
We are
US, right?
in this.
So there are many things which I thought I should point it out based on my experience. Yeah.
So, sir, was the situation of India same back in 2016, or would you say that
I
we have?
honestly, I don't know the answer to that
Okay,
because as I mentioned to you, I never looked into the research, what's going on in India, or I had no
okay,
intention of applying anywhere. I did not apply anywhere other than HKUST. It's only because
okay,
HKUST offered me a direct PhD
okay,
when
okay,
I went for
okay.
an internship, so I went there. So that's why I have very little information with regards to that. But one thing I'm sure now, because I interact with people who have done
Uh,
PhDs in India, they mention that okay, India is definitely improving, and in terms of research, for sure. Yeah.
so in 2030, maybe can we expect that India is on the same scale as the countries that people? I mean, people talk a lot about brain drain in India.
Mm,
That's an area of
yeah,
concern, I
again,
guess.
that is another thing, over the years I consider, like, again, it's a personal opinion, so I'm gonna put that as a disclaimer. So all these concepts, slowly, I believe that it's going towards a globalized world, right?
Okay.
And I don't really feel, of course, maybe to a certain extent, you always you want to be attached to your roots, do something for your
Mm,
country. But I would rather say that think broader, to people. Why only limit yourself, or and like only for country? If you think like I want to do something for the world, for the whole humanity, then automatically you are doing something for India, right? Isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
so over the years, my thinking, I was extremely patriotic growing up. I'm still, right now India
yeah.
Australia match is going on, and I'm thinking what's going on. And I mean, I follow all the things going on, like even Pathan or all the politics that's going on. But my my point is, like, growing up, I mean, I even went for NDA, for the SSB, and later
Yeah.
I didn't go. I went to NIT Durgapur. But the thing is, I realized one thing, that at least I started to think on a broader perspective. I started to think, oh, I should, is it really, country is also kind of a division, I would say,
Yeah.
so why think just based on that? Just go for the best possible opportunity, do something for the science, for humanity, whatever you want to. I mean, depends on your dream and passion. So whatever you want to do, think in a way, for a broader scale, and automatically you will do something for your country. And because of your roots, eventually you will do many things for your country. And it could be anywhere. You could live in India and do it. You could live anywhere and do it, not anywhere, of course, not North Korea or but yeah, I mean, depends on that. So that's something which I wanted to share my own, like
Yeah.
personal opinion based on that. Yeah.
Sir, CGPA is a criteria that I guess definitely matters, and there is a lot of talk about CGPA when it comes to placements. But when it comes to bagging an MS or a PhD seat abroad, what should be a minimum CGPA that one should try to keep at NIT DGP if he or she harbors a dream of following the path that you have followed?
Yeah. So as high as possible. That would be my
Okay.
answer. Of course, you try to keep your CGPA as high as possible, but I won't say it's the sole criteria. Don't put too much
Mm,
pressure on it. You try your best, like try your best and try to, um, so when you apply for, I'm not sure what master position, but let's say when I applied for a PhD position directly, and I guess it's the same for if you do master by research, because master position could be a bit misleading, because there are certain positions like MPhil, which is masters by research, certain positions which are like paid positions when you pay yourself and study, like many people in computer science do, come over here and do masters of science and, then try to bag jobs in big companies. So what I would like to say is, like, depends on what kind of program you're applying for, but in general, in terms of research, I would say if you're applying for a research position, be it masters or PhD, so they see your overall profile. CGPA is one criteria, I would say. Okay,
Okay.
so CGPA is one criteria. If your CGPA is high, and how it is reflected is your rank, because of course CGPA is kind of, like,
Relative grading.
relative. Yeah. So if, let's say, let's say if you have, I don't know how many in your batch, 60 or
71 right now, including the dual degree P
okay,
students.
so let's say 71. So if you are in top three of 71,
Okay.
so you get a letter, you can show that. So that could be an additional point. That's not like end all or something, but that could be one additional point, that if you're ranking top three among 71 people, and a relatively high CGPA, let's say above 8, 9, whatever that is,
Yeah.
depending on your department. So I would say that try to obtain as much marks as possible, because that will give you an edge, that will give you an extra edge, that yes, you took your courses seriously, and you did well in your courses. That reflects something, that reflects sincerity, like constant, uh, like constant responsibility and whatever, all that, group projects, there are many things involved, right? So there are
Yeah.
reasons why they see that. I mean, maybe there are certain reasons which people don't know, why marks are less, but still, like, you try to get as much as possible, I would suggest. And that could be one benefit for you. But at the same time, that's only one criteria, right? CGPA. You have your overall profile, whatever you have done, be it, like, for example, you are doing this Chem Darshan, right?
Yeah.
Chem
Yes.
Darshan things, your extracurricular things, like any club or any other activity, or any competitions you are doing, all these things matter, for example. And then in terms of research, let's say if you have done some research projects, that matters. And then if you I mean, it's not mandatory, again, it's just like CGPA, not mandatory to be very high. Of course, you need to have a certain CGPA, not like very low, that reflects negative on your CV. But if you have a certain CGPA which kind of reflects, okay, you are good. But then if you are really among the top students, try that will be better, an additional point. Now, similarly, if you have some, let's say, some name in one research paper or some conference, something like that, that's an additional point, especially, let's say, if you want to apply PhD to, let's say, Harvard or MIT, in that case, you need to have something, in terms of research things as well. And then if you want to apply to US, then need to have GRE and TOEFL, IELTS. Now everywhere it's kind of one of them is mandatory, so you need to have good score there. Then you should have good letters of recommendation. So there are so many things, you need to have. Or probably your research proposal, what you're writing, you should write, they see that how you're writing and how you think about research in general. So there are multiple facets to it, you need to have all of them. If you tick all of them, that is, you gives you the best possible chance. Then they do the interview, by the way. Most
Yeah.
places do the interview, so they will do an one-on-one interview with you, maybe the department head or your like potential supervisor. So that also matters, they see how you are, when they interview you. So all these things which I mentioned, interview, your research, maybe paper, conference, or other credential research projects, your extracurricular things, or your like overall CV, your letters of recommendation, and CGPA. So CGPA is just one criteria which reflects, how, as I said, like how sincere you are. For example, when I was applying for Harvard as well, I mean, like, for example, I believe that whatever I did in HKST, like a lot of international competitions which I won, for example, the 3-minute thesis competition, for which I went to the Asia Pacific finals in Australia. Then I was selected for the ETH Zurich one, like then the Hult Prize competition. So many things which I won. I'm not 100% sure, but I think those things helped in my CV to be
They played a
shortlisted.
part.
Yeah, they played a part for being shortlisted and being, like, getting the interviews. Although my interview was like multiple part, 2, 3 parts, but yeah. Anyway, yeah. Hmm.
So, sir, this is a very specific question put forward by one of my friends.
Hmm.
So, if someone has a CGPA of 8.4 and
Hmm.
is aiming for an MS or a direct PhD at a foreign university ranked 15 or below, approximately how many research papers should he or she publish?
Again, so as I mentioned in my previous answer, there is no such criteria, when
Criteria,
you
yeah.
apply for a position, there is no such thing as criteria mentioned, or you need to have this many papers or something, especially when you are applying for a PhD, because they know that in undergraduate it's not like it's not easy that you publish papers, right? Especially, I mean, maybe you help someone in some project, and if your name comes,
Yeah.
in certain papers, that's good. So first of all, CGPA 8.4, I think it's in chemical engine, our department, right? So your friend is from our department, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He's in
okay.
eighth semester as well.
I see, I see. So yeah, I mean, 8.4, I mean, it is above 8 in 10, and it is decent CGPA, I would say.
Yeah.
And probably, I'm not sure if he or she has rank within top 10 or 15, I don't know. So if he or
Top
she
15,
has,
yes. Top
yeah.
15,
So
yes.
if
Yeah.
that is the case, maybe top 15 would be a bit too far stretched, but if it is
Yeah.
within a certain rank, they could mention in their application as well that, okay, I'm in top 10 among 71, something like that. So that's one thing. But other than that, I would say that there is no such requirement. But yes, since CGPA, or since the rank is not in top three, then to give that extra edge, he or she might, I would say that if they have certain anything, I mean, even a single conference paper or
Mhm.
any name in any research paper would definitely help. Especially, you mentioned top 15 universities, right? So in that case, they have certain, like, if you aim for a higher ranked university or university with higher pedigree, in that case, they, of course, they have many applications, right? So they have to choose. So when they have more choices, they will go for, so you need to have as much age as you can put in your um, CV.
CV.
So of course, if you can show some research projects, or even if you have worked in certain research projects, you can mention about it. So that's one, and many other things which I mentioned. So try to gain, because CGPA you can't change much because it's in the final
Mhm.
year. So try to
Finally, yeah.
improve in the other things. Yeah, that's my suggestion.
And sir, also there is a lot of myth in both final years and third years that higher number of research papers published or higher number of projects worked upon,
Mhm.
I mean, is better. So is this just a myth or the quantity matters? For me, always, for example, quality matters more than quantity. So,
So when you're applying for a PhD, quantity is not really
not
what
really.
matters, I would say. I mean, quality is actually, both does not matter that much.
Okay.
If you just show that, okay, you have the ability to conduct some research, you understand how to do research, so what they look for, let's say I'm a supervisor, which I will be someday, hopefully,
Okay.
fingers crossed. So what I will look for if I'm selecting a student, I will think that, okay, if that student has the potential, has the potential to
Mhm.
conduct research, or how, properly he or she can conduct research. And let's say if you demonstrate that potential already in your undergraduate, that you can write or a paper, or you can, present in a conference, or you can, so quality quantity is okay. I mean, if
Mm.
that is good, it's an additional point. But if you
No.
just demonstrate the ability of conducting research work, for example, how do you conduct research? You do a comprehensive literature review, then you jot down what are the research gaps, then you see what are your objectives, and then, you do certain research, and then you process, analyze data, then do some discussion, come to a conclusion. So if you show your ability in all these things, or any of the few things, that is already enough. They don't really look, oh, where did you publish, or how many did you publish. I don't think, if you have that, it's good. It's not a harm. The more quality you have, the more quantity you have, it's
The
gonna
better.
benefit you. It will make your chances better, because see, eventually it's you don't know whom you're competing with, and where
Mm.
you can edge anyone else if you're applying for a big university. And a lot of things depends on luck and timing as well, so you need to have your
Mm.
proper timing and luck. So the more your profile is good, it will definitely help. I'm not saying that you don't focus on quality and quantity, but
Yeah.
when you're applying for a PhD and you
Mm.
have your undergraduate, during undergraduate, you just demonstrate your ability, that is already enough. And then don't think about quantity. That would be my
Yes,
suggestion.
sir.
Just
Yeah.
demonstrate your ability of doing good research. That's it. That's the only thing that matters. But yeah,
Sir,
after your PhD, or during your PhD, of course, quality matters and
Mm.
quantity matters. But that's for later. I'm pretty sure the audience are mostly who are undergraduates. Yeah.
No, the PhD scholars also have subscribed to our channel, so they are also watching. They will also be watching this.
Okay, okay. In that case, I would definitely mention that for PhDs, yes, then you need to think about quality and maybe quantity as well of publications.
Uh,
Maybe quantity, again, it depends. Like quantity, I would still prefer quality. I would say quality first, then quantity.
mm,
Then you try to have some good research papers, and then if you can have more of that, the better, But of course, you need to have certain numbers. For example, when you apply for any scientist position, postdoctoral fellow
mm,
positions. So these positions, they also see the same thing, that do you have the ability to publish in good quality journals, and can
yeah.
you publish consistently, do you have that ability? So they see that along with the demonstration of doing research work. On the top of that, they see that as well. And of course, how you think rational, I mean, your logical coherent thinking, and all that. Of course, they will do interviews and they will see.
Brainstorming ability.
Yeah, many things. Yeah, so of course during the interview or through scanning through the whole CV, they will understand those things. Yeah.
But for undergraduate students, it's just the demonstration of the ability to conduct
Yeah, I
research.
think that's the most important part. Other
Most
than
important.
that, if you have quantity or quality, as much as you can, then it's good. But don't go for it.
Mm,
Don't think, oh, if I have many papers, but then
uh,
eventually you don't really understand how to conduct
uh,
research. You just have numbers, then it doesn't really
mm,
matter, because eventually, I mean, you will have to give an interview, right?
uh.
So yeah.
So, sir, as you mentioned that for your PhD, HKUST offered you a direct PhD program
Oh, okay, okay. So I think
based on your internship.
no, 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 no. It's not like PPO kind thing. No,
Okay.
they
Okay.
offered me means. Oh, okay. So I think I used the wrong word. So offered means, of course, after application and interview, they offered me the
Mm,
position. But during my internship, so I actually did my internship with another professor, Professor Govachen, and he asked me before I was coming that he said you can apply for a direct PhD. So before that, I was not even aware that I could apply for a
okay.
direct PhD. So he asked me, oh, why don't you apply for a direct PhD, So I said, oh, can we do that? And he said, yeah, of course, we in HKST we have this provision. So I said, that's amazing, because their stipend was really good, and I thought
Mm,
whatever I was getting in, if I did a job anyway, I will get the similar amount or even more, much more
mm,
amount of money there. Of course, the cost of living is much higher in Hong Kong, but I
yeah.
thought that that's a very lucrative option. And as I mentioned, the university, I loved the city, university, everything, and the how to say, the overall everything about dynamics of Hong Kong, and the university itself being in very highly ranked. So all that kind of led me to apply, and once I applied, so one thing which was in one of my advantage was among my recommendation letters. So of course, professors from NIT Durgapur also gave me recommendation, and along with it, Professor Chen also gave me recommendation. So which was an
Mm,
advantage for me, because he was, I mean, he is from HQST, right? So that was an advantage. And then I applied, and I went through the same process like anyone else would do, like my CGPA, I mean, overall profile, and you need to write a research, statement, like what you plan to do, and your overall CV, and I mean, there is a whole application procedure. So I went through all that, and then I had my interview. So my I mean, my PhD supervisor, he interviewed me, and asked me questions regarding why Hong Kong, why PhD, all those things, those kind of questions, and what you want to do, or what did you do in your internship, for example,
mm.
so all that kind of stuff. So I went through the process, and then I received the offer. Yeah.
Sir, in case of the internship, you applied to the professor or applied to any
Oh,
program?
so in my particular case, I applied. I mean, I directly emailed professor with my CV and a statement of purpose
Mm,
to few professors in UST and NUS, and thankfully, because I was also asking for stipend, so only Professor Chen agreed that, oh yeah, he can give me stipend, thankfully. But I do know that there are many like those kind of internship things which are officially, as well. I mean, which are
Uh,
through websites and other things, which I was not aware of at that point of time. But I do know that you could always, that's why I said that you should keep your ears and eyes open, and always look for opportunities wherever you could find. So there are plenty of such things available throughout India and abroad. Yeah.
And sir, you have spent quite some time researching in various fields related to chemical engineering and
Hmm.
its interdisciplinary applications. So, sir, my final question to you would be that what, according to you, are some of the emerging research areas of chemical engineering and biomolecular engineering, since you've also spent some time researching that field, that the students graduating in 2023 or
Mhm.
2024 may find interesting to work upon going down the line?
Yeah, so yeah, as I think we already discussed that chemical engineering is very diverse, and we are
Yeah.
lucky that we are part of chemical engineering community, and it has wide ranging applications and research areas, and um, so everywhere, I mean, first of all, I would say nanotechnology, right? Nanotechnology and
Mhm.
materials, all that, in terms of energy, energy, environment, sustainability, all that. So energy storage, energy conversion, so batteries, fuel cells, which I've been working on, by the way. So my PhD supervisor, so our group kind of, they discovered the not discovered, let's say, they prepared this material with the highest durability in a proton exchange membrane fuel
Okay.
cell, yeah, recently. So that was something really amazing. So because these green energy and all these things are the future, right? So that's something. Then something related to polymer materials, right? Polymers are huge application. So it could be in drug delivery, and a lot of biological things, these biomolecules, as you mentioned. So a lot of applications in immunology, or many. So if you look through the profile of chemical engineering professors in any university, you will see people are working on so many transdisciplinary fields with biology as well, so cancer immunotherapy, or let's say drug delivery, as I mentioned, or it could be molecular robots, or something to do with the DNA,
Yeah.
CRISPR technologies and all that stuff. So those are very biotechnological stuffs as well, which are kind of linked with chemical engineering in certain ways. So those are there. And then, because I was speaking of polymers, because currently, which you still haven't asked me, but anyway, I'm
Okay.
gonna tell about you that my current research is, again, my department is Earth and Planetary Science, although there is some
It
links to
just came
NASA.
into my mind. I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, so my department is Earth and Planetary Science, and as I mentioned, a lot of links with NASA as well, because professors and all that. And so the currently our specifically, so there are many groups. Some work on in the Origin of Life initiative, some groups work on like exoplanets, like assessing data from Kepler, or even now James Webb data are coming. And some groups, so for example, specifically our group is trying to design chemical systems exhibiting function of life. So no biochemistry, no DNA, RNA, protein. So our systems exhibit functions of life, which is like in information, self-reproduction, evolution, and metabolism, and so there is a gray area. So we are understanding the origin of life, right? So if we go back, even the before the RNA world, there is a pre-RNA, right? RNA world. RNA didn't come out of anywhere, right? There must be
No.
some non-biochemical systems which slowly would have evolved into RNA. So we are trying to understand that gray area, and we are trying to design systems which we can think of it as an aeroplane and a bird. My supervisor used to say that aeroplane performs the function of flight, so we cannot call it bird, but it's kind of performing one of the functions of
No.
bird. So similarly, our chemical system performs the function of life. And
Yeah.
so this so within our research, we are dealing with a lot of polymer chemistry, photochemistry, and condensed matter physics as well, and a little bit of electrochemistry as well. And there are always engineering aspects to it, when you design systems, when you on do all the stuff. And another thing about is, so our group is the first one to discover, or I mean to invent, chemical Turing machine. So if you Google chemical Turing machine, that's our
Okay.
group. You will
Okay.
find scientists invent
I'll
chemical
definitely
Turing
check
machine.
that up right
Yeah,
after
so
the meet.
Turing machine is a computer science concept, and chemical reactions itself can compute, so that is something which was invented by our group, Juan Perez Mercader, with whom I'm working, Professor him, and so they worked, and currently we are doing other works based on that as well. So yeah, a lot of polymer chemistry. So it's very transdisciplinary, the current work I'm doing. So a little bit of related, a lot of chemistry, of course, and chemical engineering aspects are always there. Yeah, so many fields. So you just need to go through and find your own interest, and you will. And of course, I forgot the traditional chemical engineering stuff, like the
Yeah.
catalytic. These are like the modern stuff, but of course, you have process engineering. You have catalytic. different catalysis, all kinds of catalysis stuff. And you have you always optimizing the processes, and it's always a never ending process, right? You find the most optimized solution in everything. Yeah.
It's amazing to actually know how many fields chemical engineering has within itself, and yet when we talk about undergraduate students, their sole focus lies on. I mean, most people in undergraduate degree, I don't know why this misconception is there, but
Mhm.
they think that chemical engineering means petroleum and petrochemical engineering, and it's a huge misconception, I guess.
Yeah. It's not only producing chemicals. I mean, even if
Uh,
you think of producing chemicals, then also you have like plethora of like chemicals, but not only chemicals itself. I mean, even
uh,
microfluidics, for example. I mean,
yeah.
microfluidics could have application everywhere, from electronics to everywhere, and of course, you need chemical engineering aspects there as well. So everywhere, yeah, it's everywhere.
They call us the universal engineers.
Yeah,
Chemical
yeah.
engineers, they call us the universal engineers.
True, true.
Sir, one thing I would like to ask is that I was going to ask about your research in MIT, or sorry, in Harvard,
Yeah.
but I all
Yeah.
too much discussion of MIT in the meeting, I guess. So,
Yeah. It's fine. It's very nearby, so yeah, it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you already mentioned that all that. So I would like to ask you that is there any sophisticated procedure of applying for a postdoc or even for a PhD into Harvard University, or is it like again you have to apply to the professors, mail the professors, and
No.
that's
Of
how we
course,
do
you
it?
can look through. So, I mean, for
Uh,
example, Harvard, which is very easy. You can just go through the Harvard website, Harvard
mm,
jobs, and within that, like they have listings, So, of course, you go through the listings available. So, there are multiple. I mean, for postdoctoral fellow, for example, the way I found it out, because
uh,
I really wanted to do a postdoc in one of the top five universities. So, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Oxford, and Cambridge. So, I looked
yeah.
through their listings, and I kind of like saw where there is an open position, and then I emailed, accordingly. I mean, you could directly apply positions, or you could email your materials, whatever is said there, accordingly you follow the instructions. So, and then if they like you, they call you for interview. So that's how it goes during postdoctoral. PhD also similar. So there are portals, definitely portals for PhD applications. They open at
Yeah.
certain point of time, fall or spring, anywhere, and
Yeah.
then you upload your materials, and your scores and everything. For example, for Harvard, you should for Harvard, MIT, I would say, if somebody wants to apply for a PhD here, what I would say is you should try to have some research paper or conference, that will
Mm,
help. And of course, high CGPA. And then you should have good letters of recommendation, for
yeah. Of
example.
course.
And you should also have as many as possible extracurricular stuff.
Yeah.
And you should also think of like how to say, very good GRE, and like TOEFL
Mm.
score. So all these things. And then also, I mean, it depends a lot on what kind of
Luck.
positions are open. Yeah, luck,
Luck
timing,
also.
always.
Luck
Yeah,
timing.
that
Yeah.
plays a part always, because you don't know what kind of positions open at what point of time, and all that. I mean, I got many other positions too, but I chose this one because I really loved the research. The topic is so, I mean, especially the chemical Turing machine part. When I read, oh, our group is the first one to invent it, so I was really, inclined towards it, and wanted to learn, and and wanted to diversify my research experience as well, because I just didn't want to continue in the same thing all the time. So I
Mm.
wanted to prove that as well. I mean, just saying is not enough, that okay, yeah, I can do any research. But once I do, then I can say that yes, I have conducted research in different fields. So I think I'm capable enough to, whatever I want to do in future. So I wanted to have that flexibility, rather than limiting myself to a particular field, that okay, I just do fuel cell, or I just do this. So that was my personal thinking. But there is no harm in that. Many people also focus on only one thing throughout the research career, and then they do really well as well. So it's different ways of approaching. So my way was, trying to diversify my portfolio. Yeah.
But mailing professors is also an option. you would
Yes,
say.
yes, of course. For PhD, you can, of course, you can email professors and see if they have a position available at any point of time with your CV and stuff. And if they like your CV, then definitely they can tell you that okay, and if you receive a positive feedback, then of course you still have to go through the official procedure.
Hmm.
But if you receive a positive feedback, then you have more chances, of getting it. They themselves will help you in your application. But the thing is, yeah, emailing professor, but you make sure no matter when you email, if you are emailing for scientist position after PhD, or if you are emailing for PhD position, your email should be, email is also important, how you email. So subject should be very concise, what you want, so that they see the subject, they will open if they want to open, if they don't, so subject should be very to the point, very concise. And then whatever you say, like in few paragraphs, I mean, you all would have might have come
Hmm.
across this, but make sure that email is very to the point, concise, and very directed, and very in a very like logical flowing, the flow should be very logical. And you, of course,
The statement of purpose should be clear.
statement of purpose, yeah, I mean, it depends. Like CV, you should have a very good CV, resume, whatever you call. And then
Okay.
I know there are certain differences, but I'm not going to get into that. But your CV should be there. And then you have statement of purpose if it is asked, let's say for
Okay.
some application, if it is asked, if you put. If it is not asked, then you may or may not put, because you will definitely mention, about yourself in this email body itself, right? In short, for example, let's say if you say that, okay, I am Somojit, have, done this research projects in my undergraduate, I have this much CGPA, and I'm interested in why you're interested. I came across your this paper, and whatever, you want to say, genuine interest if you want to show. So in that case, you can just, like make sure that your email body itself acts as a cover, cover or statement of purpose. You don't necessarily have to have a
Yeah.
separate statement of purpose unless you are asked, that's my personal opinion. But even if you provide it, there is no harm. But then you have to change that, right, a lot, because you'll be
Mm.
doing multiple applications. So in that case, I would say the email body itself, if you change a little bit, and attach CV, that is should be more than enough. Yeah.
So, sir, one of the main reasons that I mentioned that my batchmates, this is my personal question as well. You can take it as my personal question.
Mhm.
Uh, Most people, I guess, want to ditch that MS or MTech in between,
Mhm.
particularly when they're applying to positions abroad in universities of the US or Hong Kong or Singapore. Is
Mhm.
that when people are applying for a PhD, they get funded and they get scholarships.
Mhm.
But when it comes to MS or MTech, it's
Mhm.
far more difficult to be funded or get a scholarship. Is this a myth or is there any truth to it? And if there is
So
any truth to it, could you throw some light on it?
yeah,
How?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So even for PhDs, by the way, depends on where you are doing
Okay.
PhD. It's not easy to get stipend. And for example, like places like Hong Kong and Singapore are better because they kind of guarantee, if you're an international
Yeah.
student, you'll get. But in US, sometimes you have to do TA, TA stuff, and sometimes you may or may not get the TA depending on who your supervisor is, So you may or may not get the stipend all the time. So that is something which I've heard, but more or less it's guaranteed. I mean, if your luck is not
Mm.
too bad, you will get some stipend, but not too much. Like for
Yeah.
example, in US,
For
even
PhD.
yeah, for PhD also, I'm saying, for example, if you're a PhD in US, and you will get stipend, I mean, most probably, but you need to be careful, who you need to discuss thoroughly with your professor. That's my point, that you will get some TA positions and get some funding. And then and for example, the reason you need to discuss it with your professor, let's say you don't get the TA position, then
Mm.
professor can give you money from his or her grant as well, right? So they could
Yeah.
assure you that okay, you will get some stipend, right? So that's number one. Number two is in US, you need to pay tax even if you are a student. There is no tax for students, PhD students in those places. Then again, in UK or many other places, the PhD student stipend is very low, So you need to see all these things as well once you're applying for a PhD. And with regards to PhD, most places do provide stipend. So that's the good thing. But for masters, definitely, if you go for masters, unless you're doing MPhil, master by research, which is master of philosophy, if that is something which you are doing, then you are provided stipend. For example, HKUST has this MPhil, so MPhil also gets very good stipend, and You don't have to pay anything by yourself, and you can save money as well. So you could look for those kind of programs if you want to go for masters and earn stipend as well. So MPhil program HKUST provides. I'm not sure about the other universities in Hong Kong or Singapore, but most probably you can have a look at it. I think HKU or NUSNTU also provides this kind of MPhil kind of option. In US, I don't think there is too many master by
Yeah.
research options, but again, I'm not 100% sure. You need to check it online thoroughly
Mm.
whether US has some options as well. But definitely in HKUST where I did my PhD, they had MPhil option. But I do know that this kind of MPhil options are not that common throughout the world. So getting a stipend in masters is not that common, but it is still there. So you need to find those options. But for PhD, yes, definitely most places do provide you stipend. Yeah.
Sir, coming to TA, since you were also teaching assistant coordinator at
Mhm.
Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, so any message you would like to give to anyone in the teaching profession based on your experiences for making it more interesting to the students?
Yeah. So yes, teaching is a very important part
Yeah.
in the academics, right? If you go in the long term, I mean, teaching, let's say, of course, if you're teaching a class, eventually you become professor, you teach,
Yeah.
or even if you are, like teaching some juniors, or teaching is a very
Yeah.
something which we always do, even
Mm.
with our we can call it in any other words also, but it's very important. That's one of the most important things which we should learn and get better at throughout. So in HKUST, one good thing was they had workshops, in the first year,
Okay.
and they had workshops of how to improve those things or different aspects to it, like classroom learning, how to manage the diversity, let's say different. For example, there is this concept which many of you might have heard that like different people within your class will have a different, learning approach or different learning
Yeah.
ways. So you need to cater to the needs. You need to understand how different people learn and how they, so you need to devise your strategies in a way that you maximize or make sure that everyone learn or to the maximum as possible. So those things, understanding the needs of your class, interacting with them, have more, try to find creative. There is a very famous video which circulates, a physics teacher putting his life on thread just trying to explain
Yeah.
some concept. That is a bit too extreme, but
Mm.
trying to make your class as interactive as possible, so that or use some innovative or some creative ways to engage them. That is called
Mm.
engaging. So if you engage your people, divide there into groups for some activities, whatever. So
Mm.
based on your class size as well, let's say if you're teaching based on your class size, you need to devise strategies. So you need to take teaching seriously,
Yeah.
like understand the requirements, different requirements of different people coming from different backgrounds, different learning abilities, diversity, especially in international environment. You have people coming from all over the world, right? So
Yeah.
everyone will have a different way of learning, different ability of learning. So to understand that is very difficult. It's easier said than done. So to understand the requirements of each individual is super difficult if you have a larger class. That's why it's recommended that you should not have too larger class, but that's a different point altogether. But so understanding them, then devising strategies according to them, making sure everyone can maximize their learning potential, and making it interactive, making it more um how to say engaging, through creative methods, through whatever. I mean, there could be multiple creative methods through your slides, through your your props. You could use whatever you want, I mean, depending on what you're teaching as well. So there are so many different things, which are there to keep learning and keep improving and getting better at the process of teaching. You could use examples. Sometimes people say the more no more visual, sometimes people say the more visual, and those kind of aids. Although I know you asked me to use visual aids, I am not using one, but
Yeah.
but anyway, because have been lazy today. But
No,
the
no,
more
it's no issue. Mhm.
visual aids are helpful. Visual aids are
Yeah.
helpful. And then how to say, the examples, the more examples you provide regarding certain things, like the more you, I mean, these are some very small specific points, but yeah. So many things I do appreciate that HKUST takes I think a lot of effort in making sure that you understand about teaching, even when you're being teaching assistant. I was a teaching assistant coordinator for the whole department, and I used to look how others are doing as well in my peers. So yeah, it was a really good experience, and these are the learnings from the teaching which I would love to which I shared. Yeah.
Sir, I guess that's all from my side.
Mhm.
There are no further questions,
Great.
fortunately or unfortunately. So,
Yeah, I think it's already
yeah,
been long. Yeah.
yeah, India versus Australia is waiting.
Yeah, India versus Australia is waiting. I really have to
So yeah, so
start watching that.
we'll switch over to whatever channel. I think Star Sports One.
Yeah,
I
but
think.
actually,
Uh,
from here, I have the ESPN Plus subscription, so I will
okay,
just
okay.
watch there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And
we'll switch
yeah,
over to India versus Australia. But genuine request to our viewers that if you have any further questions that I have left uncovered, do comment in the YouTube section, and we'll get answers from Sir and get back to you. And Sir has a YouTube channel as well, I guess, of his own.
yeah,
Yeah,
my
where
YouTube
there are,
channel is for sports, though. It's a
yeah,
sports. So
multiple. I've watched the cricket podcasts. I've watched the cricket
yeah. Yeah.
podcasts. Do subscribe to it and watch those too because they're really good. So
Thanks for the promotion. So the channel name
yeah,
is Sports with Sid.
yeah. Yeah,
So yeah.
I've watched 7 or 8 of those podcasts, I guess.
Okay, okay.
I really
Thanks.
liked some of those. Yeah. So
Yeah. So
thank you for joining us here today, and I hope you enjoyed.
yeah.
Although it was basically an interaction with me, at least so far.
Mhm.
I hope YouTube comment section offers a different experience. So yeah,
Yeah, sure. And I would definitely say, first of all, thanks a lot for you. And we have been trying to schedule it for a long time, and
yeah, yeah.
finally, finally, we find the time to do this. So anyway, maybe this is the right time for this. And all the best for your future endeavors as well.
Thank you,
And
sir.
I'm pretty sure you will also get a very good optimized solution for your career moving forward.
Yeah,
And whoever is watching, I would definitely say, first of all, to you and your society, that thanks for inviting me again. And it was an honor and privilege as well to be answering and sharing my experiences. And that's very important as well. We all learn, like the more we share, the more we learn. And uh, and of course, the people who will see this, I would say that, yes, I mean, feel free to reach out to me. I mean, I'm not everywhere, but I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram,
yeah.
of course, don't reach to me on Instagram with study questions, but but you can all follow me. But anyway, the point is, feel free to reach me if you have any specific questions or anything anywhere. Yeah. So don't hesitate. And of course, as you mentioned, YouTube comments are there. But yeah, feel free to reach me. Yeah.
So with that, I would like to conclude. But before I
Mm.
cut the call and stop the recording, I would like to give a major shout out to my video editing team who will be working hard to get this out to you, to help this reach out to you. So thank you one and all. Meeting you in the next chat with chess placement talk sessions or Chem Darshan, whichever comes earlier for me. Thank you, sir.